Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel, and for so many likes. The first story. My company lost a client after that. Me and my team were offered a position. The second story. Guy crashed my car and paid a lot more than I said. The third story. Whole team decided to stick to the schedule and come to work on time. The first story is, my former employers lost their client and business because of me. A few years back in 2018, I had decided to switch employers. I worked from home as a chat support specialist and eventually a supervisor for a major tech company. I had decided to switch to small-time customer support agency that was just starting a new chat team. They had better pay and benefits because they only had a small number of employees compared to the former. The description of the position I was to be hired for was another salary-based supervisory role for their brand new chat team for the clients. I'd basically be doing the same things as my previous job, but also spearheading this small department while simultaneously training other coworkers with zero experience in chat support. This was going extremely well, and our client was ecstatic at the results of the new chat program. They had personally sent me an email over my progress. The company I left was and still is known worldwide to have the friendliest and professional customer support out of any other company, and so it was easy to apply what I learned to this new position. After about 2 months of doing this, the person I directly reported to, the regional supervisor, was retiring. Our new regional came in and was friendly at first, but decided that he didn't want to waste his time on chat and directed me to phone support, which was not in my job description, nor what I was hired for by any means. He cited that the client was unhappy with the results, which was in stark contrast to what they had told me directly. Even after forwarding him the email, he was still not doing anything about it. So I complied. It took just 2 days for the client to have reached out to me personally. After explaining to them the situation, they were livid. My new regional had lied to me about his contact with the client, and had essentially ignored our client's attempt to contact him about this issue. I had continued to work in the supervisory role for phones until the first quality review of my employees came up. For team leads and direct call center employees both, this is where I review their interactions and grade them based off their strengths and weaknesses. Our regional wanted me to even include the chat support team, who were neither hired or trained for phones. He refused to give them training. On every single employee who was hired for chat support, I had filed all of them as unable to be completed, and in my notations I included this is not the position they were hired or trained for, and thus an analysis could not be accurately completed. And I sent this to both the regional manager and our client as well, since at this point I had a direct contact email. I was responded to the same day by whoever it is within our client who oversees all of outsourcing. The only words I got back were, "We will deal with this." The client held a meeting the following week with my employers. I'm not sure what was said in that meeting, but word got back to everyone that the client had dropped us for breach of contract. Because this was a small office and our company's only clients for several years, this was bad. After that, me and my team were offered a position with the company directly doing the things we were hired to do, but required us to move about 4 hours north, so unfortunately none of us decided to accept that offer. I collected unemployment until I found a new job. Now the company is out of business and is currently being sued by some other employees for unpaid wages. This new case has been going on since 2019. Edit. For clarification purposes, because it seems to confuse some people, it's just one office less than 300 people. The name of his position was Regional Supervisor. It was pretty stupid to name him that, but that's what he was called, even though he worked the only office that existed. I'll assume it was to make the role look more attractive than it actually is. That's a common happenstance. The supervisor orders the OP to ignore the client's wishes and do what the supervisor says. The OP did so. After the MC, the client contacted the OP directly and everything else happened. Well, here's a simple case where the owner deserved it. The thing is, the owner was so stupid and incompetent that he probably would have bankrupted the company later. I don't even feel sorry for him. I've been in my industry for decades and have had managerial positions. I choose not to stay in the manager stuff because frankly I rather like shoveling coal and pulling levers. The number of times I've had a business weenie demanding that I break a contract with a client has been so great that I now demand that they respond to a factual email. Your actions have consequences. You tried to fix it, but HR didn't do their job. But I also have a hard time understanding that you didn't have any contact information for the CEO or anyone above the regional manager. In all the companies I've worked for, I've always had a way to contact the CEO or someone very high up, or use the whistleblower function. The second story is, a driver hits my truck, refused to get insurance involved, wasting my time and being difficult. Enjoy the butthole tax. This happened just a week ago. I'm an over-the-road truck driver and I was on off-duty mode since the day before, so I was stationary the whole time. While I was in my bed trying to sleep, I suddenly heard a loud crunch, followed by a pretty rough rocking of my truck. When I got out and checked, I saw a truck trying to park on the left spot and struck me on his blind spot, right side of his trailer. The damage was, my driver's side mirror was folded, and there are cracks on my left quarter fender. The driver got out, checked the damage for both my truck and his trailer. I told him that I'll need his registration, DL, and insurance, the whole 9 yards. At first, he was a little hesitant to give the information, but ended up following the rules. I did the same for him. Then he proceeded to tell me that he would prefer to pay the damage in cash or check. The reason was if insurance was involved, his company would charge him $2,500 automatically, so it's a huge loss for him. Even though I don't agree with that and I still think insurance is better, I comply and talk to my manager about the whole situation. At first, he wanted to claim through insurance too, but after seeing the damage, it was very minor. He settled and told me to charge the driver $1,200 if he wants to pay cash or check. I told the driver what my manager thinks the cost of the repair is. He was more hesitant than when I asked for his information, so I told him it's either $1,200 or insurance. Then he got this bright idea to try to get evaluations from the professional in the nearby shop for the cost of parts and labor. He even tried to fix my side mirror, which to my surprise was fixed. Okay, so no need to replace the side mirror, but the fender is still cracked, so that needed to be fixed. His reason to get professional evaluation is so he can get a receipt for tax purposes, so it's understandable. I told him that I'll need to leave in 4 hours, which is true, so I won't have all day to sit around in the mechanic shop. Not to mention I didn't get much sleep, since I need to take care of the damage. He was very assuring that it will be very quick. It won't. Shortest time I've ever been in a shop is 8 hours, so I comply. We drove to the nearest shop, which is 30 minutes away. Inside the truck, he kept saying that $1,200 is too much to fix a fender. I didn't say anything in retaliation, because I actually do not know how much it costs to fix a fender. I just trusted my manager. When we arrived, the tech said that he can't fix the truck within 3 hours. It was fairly busy, so he asked if we can just get an evaluation for the cost of parts and labor, which the tech said that he can do. After 1 hour, the tech came out and gave us a piece of paper for the evaluation. The total came out to be $1,440 for parts and labor, not including paint job, which is around $400. He was shocked, thinking that he got ripped off by the evaluation. He complained a whole bunch to the tech, but there's nothing the tech can do about it. He asked for their evaluation. He got evaluation. Then he went back to me and asked if he can still go back to the $1,200 cost. I told him, but I thought you wanted to get a receipt for evaluation done by a professional. To say he was stunned was an understatement. He kept making up excuses about the cost, but again I repeated either this or insurance. He finally complied and wrote me a check for $1,440. After we parted ways, I mentioned to him, remember to keep your words for the paint job. If not, my manager will claim the damage as hit and run. He looked at me with the dirtiest look he could muster, but he couldn't do anything about it. Oh well, at least he got his receipt. Edit 1. For those who mentioned that I might get burned with cash or check, I actually didn't think of this at first, but that was a very good lesson. Nonetheless, the driver paid me with money order because he couldn't withdraw $1,440 in cash from an ATM, and he didn't bring his checkbook. I guess it's more secure since there's no way money order could bounce. Also, I have all of his information and proof of accident from the parking lot camera. In case he tries to pull anything funny, we can just dial insurance and reveal everything. The guy wanted a professional to do the evaluation, so he got a big check. He could have gotten away with it and agreed with the OP, paid him the money and closed the case, but he was looking to profit and screwed up. I don't understand you. Why did you go all over town with him looking for someone to assess the damage? I would have gotten the insurance and left. No conversation outside of that. I can't believe your boss was cool with all of that. You can take the DVR, and as long as he's 100% wrong on the video, you can file a claim with your insurance company, and they'll find the other party's insurance. Or you can also get the police report and they can find the insurance information based on the license plate, and you can sue the other person's insurance company. Some driver hit my car a few years ago, and I immediately filed a claim with their insurance company and got paid in full. The last story is, it's not 9 a.m. yet. I worked for a small startup for the first few years of my career. My boss, CEO, seemed to still be grasping object permanence, as he had a hard time wrapping his head around people working when he could not physically see them doing so. But he was getting better over time. Business hours were 9 to 6, but all of our work could be done from home, and we had an office in Australia that some people communicated directly with, and tight release schedules sometimes meant long nights followed by late starts. So the informal policy tended to be as long as you were in the office by 10, and not leaving before 5, so you didn't need to explain yourself. And anything beyond that was fine as long as you gave someone a heads up, especially if you were managed by the CEO, who was too busy to pay close attention to people's exact arrivals and departures, and frequently away from the office himself speaking at various events. Enter our new VP, a 30-something milquetoast MBA type. Unlike the CEO, he was not too busy to pay attention to arrivals and departures, and told the CEO that obviously the lazy employees were taking advantage. The CEO, who again was sort of inclined this direction himself, sends out an email one Friday saying that from this point forward, people need to be in the office every day by 9, and they needed permission from their manager to leave before 6. Everyone was peeved, but there was no real sense of long-term concern. This wasn't the first arbitrary rule that had been handed down in this fashion, and it tended to be easiest to play along for a week or two until the CEO had moved on to the next thing, and then just ignore this rule. But the next Monday when I showed up at 8:50, 2 of my coworkers were sitting on the stairs to the unoccupied next floor, just talking and playing Candy Crush. What are you doing? It's not 9 a.m. yet. I sat down with them and soon someone else arrived and the same conversation played out. At 8:59, we all got up and walked into the office. On Tuesday, there were a half dozen people on the stairs, including leadership, chatting and texting and whatever. And when the VP arrived, people would just make hard eye contact while he squirmed. Meanwhile, myself and a few other people just said screw it and arrived after 9 a.m. anyway, looking the VP straight in the eyes we walked in. A few people who were a little more conflict averse stopped for coffee across the street, and just so happened to arrive at like 9:02, including people who normally preferred to start at 7 a.m. All this meant that rather than being about half full, the office was virtually empty until 9 a.m. It also tended to clear out at exactly 6 p.m. Several people, including myself, simply stopped responding to anything outside work hours. On Tuesday morning, one of my favorite coworkers also made a show of announcing to her contacts in the Australia office that she could now only meet between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. their time. Calamity ensued. The funny thing is that we never really talked about it before or during. It just sort of happened naturally. The CEO, who had been barely at the office on Monday and Tuesday, finally showed up early on Wednesday, asked why everyone was outside, and we told him. He opened his mouth to protest that no, that wasn't what he meant, realized what was happening, and made a strategic retreat. The policy was formally retracted 2 days later. We never discussed it again. And it was the beginning of a very messy fall from grace for the VP. Haha, it's a funny story. You're a real team, LOL. Did it all together and broke the system. Some people are late but always deliver on time and in good form. Others are on time but fail to deliver that chutzpah. The CEO probably saw signs that the union was about to be naturally created by the whole collective and decided he didn't want to deal with these problems. Smart man who made a lousy hiring decision. Glad everyone was better off and the unnecessary and useless GP was expelled. He didn't deserve this managerial position. I've worked in an office and I don't think my company owner understands how it works either. He thinks we all just show up 5 minutes before he drops by at 10 or 11 o'clock. I always get a menacing look from him when I get to work. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button.